Cubs.
Welcome to the Savage Worlds GM podcast. I'm your host, Jared Savage Daddy Gunning. This episode brought to you by our proud Patreons. If you want to become part of the show, back the show, throw us a buck, go ahead and go over to patreon.com/Savage Worlds GM podcast. We're on Twitter at SWGM podcast and on Facebook, SWGM podcast. Noticing a trend here. If you want to catch the show, you want to catch the live stream, on YouTube the Tuesday after we air on Thursday night, feel free to go to youtube.com/SWGM podcast. Like, subscribe, share, and we're also on iTunes, SWGM podcast, and wherever you get your podcast feeds are being currently updated and available for you there. And if you're watching the show tonight, feel free to comment in the live chat. We do bring that into the show. And tonight's topic, it's the beginning of a new season 20 of the podcast. So therefore, episode 1, free for all. So this is a free-form smorgasbord discussion. Feel free to participate in the live chat, bring in your questions, and we will bring them into the show. So
if you don't, we don't get nothing to talk about.
So sans the X card conversation, what we want to talk about.
Oh my God. Wow, you just completely skips over introducing hosts.
My name's Jared. I got a show. Everyone else can eat a dick.
Let me back up here to discuss it. Chris the Savage Bobby Fox.
Hello.
I'm gonna overdo it. Dave the Rules Maven Scott.
So as I understand it, you're supposed to taser stupid people till they shit themselves.
Right. Fact. Dustin the Savage Zealot Steamroller Smith.
I'm sorry. I'm really sorry. I'm normally not a psychopath.
Never apologize. It's a form of weakness. And Scott W, aka Disemboweled Savage Cheerleader.
What the fuck is on your neck?
Hairs.
That fucking triggers me. X card, take it off.
Yeah,
that's what she said.
It's a furry thing. I don't like it. It gives me trauma.
They are furries.
Oh, touche.
So there was a couple show topics. So Andy, we did get Andy Hall, viewer of the show, send in a suggestion about talking about not doing magic. We didn't want to turn that into a whole podcast episode, so that we had 3 back-to-back that focused on magic. But let's I think that's a worthy conversation to have as part of the free for all. Real quickly, like, can you run an interesting, engaging Savage Worlds mundane tale that doesn't include quote unquote magic? Do you have to infuse all Savage Worlds with magic?
Are you retarded?
That was the question.
Well, I'm triggered. You're not. Don't say things like that.
I'm sorry. The R word.
You can't say that word.
Oh no, you're completely allowed to say retarded.
No.
You're not allowed to say Savage Worlds without magic.
Oh no, you obviously you can run Savage without magic.
Yeah.
I mean,
why would you not be able to?
Yeah, it's better without magic. How about that?
There are a couple of settings like Pirates of the Spanish Main that don't have any magic in them.
It's not true.
It's not true.
Wait,
there's no magic for the player characters in Pirates of the Spanish Main, and that's one of the things that everybody gets wrong about that setting, because no one's actually read the Savage Tales in the back of the book.
Well, let's think. What? I guess that at least a good question is, can you think of some settings some published settings, Peg or anybody else who doesn't have magic of some sort? That's
arcane backgrounds, right?
Yeah, I mean that's a really,
if you broaden that from magic to arcane backgrounds in general, I cannot think of a single published setting that doesn't include an arcane background.
Yeah, it's interesting.
How about Wise Guys? Is Wise Guys going to have arcane backgrounds?
I can't comment on that.
I have not seen the document, so I
haven't either.
As far as I know, there will not be an arcane background in Wise Guys. I take that back. Ghost Ops, I don't think, had an arcane background. Did it?
Yeah, the whole thing was pure shit magic.
I can tell you an upcoming setting that doesn't include magic at all, and it's set in a zombie apocalypse.
What is it?
Yeah,
Tell me.
That's a little thing called Dead End. There's no arcane background magic in that.
And that's the zombie game that you've been running for a while.
Yeah. Feel free to grab the jump start.
You're going to do something else with it?
Yeah. Feel free to grab the jump start. on Drive Through RPG. Free.
Well, is it also 8 pages for fucking in 2 pages of index?
All of our shit's gonna have magic.
Here's the thing: the setting is free, the adventure is free, the index is $29.99.
Well played. Sir.
And when you buy the index, you get the table of contents for half off.
Oh, it's not bad actually. You should sell the index as small pieces like table tents.
Right.
Fuck, man.
Oh wow, burn.
No, yeah, I don't know. Yeah, apparently every fucking almost every published setting has magic.
Yeah,
it's a big component.
Well, it's because we talked about this way early on, right? When it was just Jared and I, and we had a real show going.
Before we brought on all the amateurs, huh?
Back in the day. No, but no, for real though, it was a topic we had talked about, and kind of I think we had broached over with Dave too. Is that like early on, and even I think when you first get started in Savage Worlds, it's sort of the perception is everything you do with Savage Worlds has to be gonzo mashup, right?
Right.
And I mean, the game presents itself that way. The settings all present themselves that way. And then you play it that way. And then you eventually sort of come out of that. Like Jared, you have your super mature zombie theme. I do special operations, not set in the shithole tacular of fucking Ghost Ops. There's a lot of mashup with Savage Worlds, and I think it just has that perception that it has. Like you said, I think Jared, you said it has to be magic plus
horror.
Right, magic.
It's genre plus horror. Genre this, genre that plus horror.
That's all you were seeing was genre plus horror. It had to be something with horror added in on top, and then we started to see some other stuff start to come around. But thinking about this a little more clearly, like Streets of Bedlam, I didn't think had any magic. I'd have to go back and relook at that one.
It doesn't. It's based. It's
based pretty closely on like Sin City, isn't it?
Yeah, it just has ultra violence and some bizarre and interesting twist on mechanics.
Fair. Like that's another one that stands out from the other settings because it kind of violates all the. I don't want to say the rules of the license, but all the like guidelines of for licensees. Like that's the one that isn't PG-13. It's the one that doesn't follow kind of this kind of middle of the road, easy for everybody to play. Like ultra violence is not something you're going to sit down at your table and play with everybody. You're only going to play that with the people who are interested in that level of violence because it's got the buckets of blood setting rules and all that stuff. Like that is absolutely a setting that stands out from a lot of the others.
Well, and to me too, it seems like some of the character creation things they attempted to try with that also gave it almost a class character type.
A little bit.
System a little bit, leaned a little bit heavily onto that.
But I think you kind of as weird as it sounds, the closer you get to, and you may have experienced this. Well, you kind of have talked about this, right? The closer I think you get to a realistic setting, the more you have to hold people's hands. It's really odd how that tends to pan out.
I know with, and again, this is kind of pull back the curtain and talk about what we're working on internally a little bit. But with Dead End, what we found happened was setting it in a zombie apocalypse where everybody kind of got to play a modern world character. You suddenly had people who still wanted that larger than life John McClane kind of zombie land character when we were aiming at, Carol from The Walking Dead as the average character in the setting.
Yeah.
And we had to work really hard. We went through 4 different iterations of a setting rule called Everyday People, trying to find a way to dial that in to kind of direct people. These are the types of characters you want to make for this setting so that you get the experience that everything else is designed to create. And if you just take out that one rule and play and use standard, Savage Worlds character creation, even Dead End ends up playing more like Zombieland than it would the way we've designed it. That one setting rule makes such a big difference because it kind of guides people, in a modern day setting to play a specific type of character rather than these larger than life, bombastic, the Expendables kind of characters.
Right. And the idea behind it too is that you're starting off in the middle of a zombie apocalypse. You're not starting off as a badass. You become a badass because of it. And you eventually grow in that character arc and become, you become Rick Grimes, just walking through shooting people in the head. But you don't start off that way. And see, I don't know. I'm trying to think. I think the reason you don't see a lot of settings for Savage Worlds that don't have magic or arcane backgrounds of some sort is really kind of a pandering the way the players want it. I mean, I don't think your average player wants to play in a modern, mundane game system that doesn't incorporate magic. It's almost
it's that the whole role playing is you want to play something fantastical. You want to get away from the mundane. I have the mundane all day long.
Yeah.
At work, copying and pasting all day long. That I need to get away from that.
Right.
Yeah.
How popular fantasy is.
Right, but I don't think having played Dead End, you're still playing those mundane kind of characters, but it fits exactly what you want for that setting, and it's a ton of fun if you make the right type of character. Like my character, I haven't talked about it in a really long time, but he was a 12-year-old kid who basically, got separated from his parents and got these group of freaking
foster
insane people take him in. And he kind of just, he had to grow up kind of quick, and he was a little league pitcher, so all he did was ranged weapon, and he threw rocks and shit, and used, and then ended up getting a slingshot, and so it's what you make of that character. So I don't want to say it's not necessarily mundane; it's just something that's not fantasy.
Well, for example, we toyed a little bit with a gangland setting too. I mean, you can do modern day or, fairly modern day. You can set something in the 70s, for example, or, the 80s, the 90s, and run it as a modern day without a magic component. And it can be fun. It can be engaging, but it's more ends up being genre shtick. It's the reason why you're showing up to play. If you're showing up to play in a gangland mafia game, you're doing it because you're a fan of movies like Casino or other things in that genre. It's not about, I want to be this super ultimate powerful thing. It's like, I want to play in this universe because there's nothing out there like it. It's not D&D. It's not sci-fi. It's this thing that I'm familiar with. I love the movie Wise Guys. I love the whole Italian mafia, cliche in the genre. I'm playing that. And that almost becomes a substitute for having magic in the game. It's because you're playing in a certain genre.
The one point where I think that they actually have anything where there's no magic is in the actual Savage Worlds Deluxe, in the back of the book with the Savage Tales, because I'm sitting here.
City.
Yeah, Crime City doesn't have any magic.
Yeah.
The SS Kane doesn't have any magic. The one where you're like tracking down the kidnapped girl through the snow, there's no magic in that one.
Yeah, you're against Fantastic Beasts, but none of the characters can do magic.
Yeah.
Now, before we just bypass it, since we have brought up the whole Wise Guys thing a couple of times, I do want to point out, come back next week, we're actually going to have Eric on the show talking about Wise Guys and revealing some information regarding their Kickstarter and whatnot. So we've touched on how, you absolutely can do that. And I know, like Jared said, we actually designed some mafia stuff that was set in the 70s, ended up mothballing it when they dropped the demo kit for Wise Guys last year. But Eric's going to be on next week, and we're going to talk about that more in depth. So if that's specifically like your jam, you want a non-magic, modern-esque game, we're going to be talking about that the entire show next week.
And I will say this, I have seen the document. I am a consultant on it for firearms, law enforcement, and the signals intelligence portion of the FBI and all that jazz. And I won't give too much away, but yeah, if if you think Goodfellas is one of the all-time greatest American movies, you will want to be watching next week, and you will want to fucking get Wise Guys. That is a legit document. It's very baller. He knocked it out of the fucking park.
Yeah. Well, I'm looking forward to having Eric on, and I'll try not to mispronounce his last name. Lamaraux. We're gonna have Lamaraux on.
Yeah, hey man, buy some fucking soft vowels or consonants. He's an American now, so
American.
Much respect.
Oh, is he? Is he down? He's down here now.
Oh, he's been an American
for a while.
Yeah,
he's been living with his wife up in Buffalo.
Yeah.
But no, it's one of those things. I think that it does definitely get overshadowed because of the escapism issue. But I think the other aspect to why we just don't see it is the 800-pound gorilla sitting in the room, all the big name stuff. Like, if you think about the stuff off the top of your head that are nameable RPGs, D&D, Shadowrun, pretty much everything from GURPS, all of those things, the big names in the industry, all had a magic component. It didn't matter if it was a cyberpunk setting, it had magic. It didn't matter if it was, the far-flung future, Warhammer 40K has a lot of magic in it. D&D absolutely has a lot of magic in it. I mean, it doesn't matter what it is. Magic is just kind of part and parcel of the RPG hobby, and I think that's the biggest reason you don't see much that doesn't include that. Is kind of it's a pillar of the hobby, so it ends up just kind of thrown in, whether it maybe fits or not.
Yeah. So, good question. Ruben posted a question regarding the new wealth system add-on, the one sheet. So, wants to talk about wealth and I guess resources economy in a role-playing game. We've kind of had this conversation before, but go ahead, dude.
Let's read this because he's actually talking about a swag document that was released, not from PEG. Ruben, good old Uncle Juan, says Donovan Bailey released an add-on for Suede's wealth system. Curious of everyone's opinion on the wealth system as a whole, knowing you guys that we did it for Cyberpunk back when we did the Cyberrunner thing. So I want to start this by saying I have not downloaded Donovan Bailey's version yet, mostly because I was waiting to hear from a couple of people I know who have bought it, whether or not it's just a reprint of the old Nemesis wealth system that we've talked about on this show, that I know pretty much every other Savage Worlds podcast we talked about, that had been released as a free product back during Deluxe.
No, it's not.
Pretty close. So I wanted to wait until I had found out before I actually supported it.
I actually just downloaded it while we were having this discussion.
I bought it and read it last night. I've got
it's
3 pages.
So what's it about?
I've got a little bit more left. I gotta read like the last half of it, but my whole thing was just the whole wealth system. So really it codifies a lot of the negatives and of trying to buy things. So like if you have, I'll just throw it out there. Like, so basically, the new wealth system, everybody starts with a D6 wealth, and for small purchases, things like that, you don't have to worry about it. You just make those. But when you want to make a bigger purchase, then you roll your wealth die, and that's going to determine whether you can do it or not. Your wealth die can go up and down. It can go up when you get rewards, which are part of the wealth system, and you can basically knock your die up for a certain amount of time. Because let's say somebody pays you $1,000 to do something, and so your dice goes up. But what this does for you is it basically gives you a whole table for a penalty table for the value of the item. So like if you have, and it shows here like the cost, if you have 500 starting funds, and not how much money your character has, just starting funds. It doesn't take into account if you're rich or poor, blah, 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 blah. So like if you want to buy something that costs up to $500, it's a -1. If up to $1,000, it's a -2, and he takes it all the way up to $2 million. And so it just kind of, if you're kind of looking and going, all right, they're trying to make a a $1,500 purchase. What kind of negative should I give them? And you can just kind of look on this chart and just kind of go, oh, all right, well, we'll give them a -2 to that roll. And so it just helps kind of, and I like things like this just because I can never really wrap my brain around, well, how much should this thing cost and how much should the negative be? And to have somebody write it down for me, I'm just, I'm lazy. So I'll take it.
So let's talk about that. Go ahead.
I'm looking through the document, and I'm not sure if any of you guys played Interface 02.0.
No.
All right, so Interface 02.0 has a cost of living and a lifestyle section.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not I don't think Daniel. I don't even know if Donovan. Excuse me, Donovan. I don't know if Donovan knew about that. But there are some sections in here like the maximum and minimum wealth. I'm looking at this document and think it's really good. I really am going to say this is a really good document. Having put out a swag title myself, this looks like a nightmare to try and stylize.
I'm sorry to interrupt, Dustin. I'm gonna jump in on this for a quick hot minute. I'm not a fan of anything that requires a random roll to determine how you're spending money. You don't need. I think there's this push, this idea that you need a complicated mechanic to handle something like, well, how do you talk about wealth and resources? To me, it's just as much. How do I put it? It's chuffa, to use an expression we've talked about before. Can the characters afford it? Does it move the story forward? Give it to them. Or don't give it to them.
That's actually one of the things he says.
It's not about how much money they have in gaming. And I understand that, you can talk about wealth systems, you can talk about resources. If it's important and it's a crucial part of your game, like encumbrance, by all means, put it in there. But so much of Savage Worlds as a core ideal abstracts this. So you can achieve the same thing by going, you know what? It's going to be hard to get black market guns or find a guy who can do surgery off the books. How about you give me a streetwise roll and we see if you find one?
Yeah, right. I mean, and then do like the Deadlands Noir, right? Okay, you got a success, so you do what you got, and it costs you a little bit extra money, or right, or you got a raise and you get what you need plus a little bit more.
So
it's really about an item's availability to the character, not how much dollars and cents they have in a bank.
Well, yeah, I mean, but it talks about that as well. I mean, if it's unavailable, then it's unavailable.
No,
Right.
I mean, Jared, I'm looking for a minigun on the black market, right? How are we going to do this? Oh, shit. Did we just lose Jared?
No, I just went cameraless. Go ahead.
You went dark. Get there and get them clothes on. But yeah, right. So that's what more is like the drama and the like John Wick. He goes and buys John Wick 2. He goes and gets some guns, right?
Yeah, he just shows up and gets, fully kitted out in like a day.
Right, yeah. And it's not how much.
That's because he's John fucking Wick.
Yeah, but it's not how much he spent. It's the coolness of the guns and the toys and
right.
The show don't tell kind of thing.
So let me ask this. Do we care how much he spent?
No.
That's one of those things I constantly kind of
I don't care that he went shopping.
Is, to me, the interesting part of the story is what happens 10 minutes later. It might be a little role play scene that we run as an interlude where you talk about the things you went shopping for, but it's what you're going to do with that or what the GM is going to do in reaction to you having it that's interesting. So we dealt with this a bit in Dead End with a mechanic that we just had to create, and we've been kind of play testing it before it rolls out to the general public. And what I've noticed is, even though we put in place a mechanic where the players can at any time declare they get almost any item in the entire freaking game, it's pulling teeth to get them to use it.
Yeah, I mean, no one cares.
Yeah, it's...
except for Chris. I mean, there's some... I mean, there are people who care, but I mean, generally you don't sit around accounting the RPG.
Yeah.
Right, and that's why I like the die roll, because I I don't have to worry about my characters, and I don't have to worry about how much money you have and are you getting money, and I can just every so often use this mechanic and solve that issue.
Yeah.
So I used to bring up the same thing Jared says, where he doesn't like the idea of an abstract roll that can be random, and like your character makes one dice roll and he can't afford lunch, but the next dice roll he buys a helicopter because on the first dice roll he rolled, a crit fail, but on the next dice roll he rolls, 9 aces and ends up with, an 87 versus, a target number of 4.
Yeah, but if you're rolling to buy lunch, you're doing it wrong. That's the whole point. That's the whole point.
But, I mean, aren't you
well,
doing
your character has like the poor hindrance you had to roll to buy lunch under the old one, and that's the one that we had talked about more. Like, again, Jared and I don't have the current this guy's version to talk about too much, but I think the interesting aspect there that I've had to kind of twist my brain around is if you're going to use the abstract die, it puts more of an onus on the GM to come up with the reason why. So when the guy went in to buy lunch, it's not that he couldn't afford lunch. It's that the card was declined at the machine, or the cash register was down, or their soda machine was out and he couldn't get the thing he wanted. Like, you as a GM have to come up with more interesting things to say because of this mechanic. And that's why I don't think the wealth system is as bad as we used to think it was. At the same time, I really do think, like everything else, it's a tool in the box and has to be used only when it's appropriate. Otherwise, you end up doing what Scott's talking about, accounting the RPG, and it's not that fun.
Here's what I'll equate it to. Oh, you have a full bladder. Give me an athletics roll to empty it. What?
Okay, that's a fair point.
What? I don't care. How does the character using the bathroom move this story forward? The answer is it doesn't. So I don't include that in the narrative.
Unless he's the Punisher and walks in on a fist fight that's going on in the bathroom.
Now, if it's you're walking into the bathroom to, beat the crap out of somebody, pardon the pun, and that's your setup, okay, then now let's have a persuasion roll or let's have a performance roll to pull that off. It's not about you emptying your bladder. It's not about you emptying your wallet. It's like anything in an investigation game. It's this idea, well, you got to make a notice roll to find clues. No, it's an investigation roll. The clues are a given. The same thing is going here. Here's what always ends up happening too, right? Oh, I'm going to hire this brave band of adventurers or mercenaries to go do this thing. Are they going to fully outfit us and kit us? Fuck yeah. Do whatever you want. So now what do I do with the wealth system? It's meaningless.
I think that it's designed to be used in game where money is one of the major obstacles. Like, I believe it was Ruben said something about the same thing they did for Cyberpunk with barter. And in a Cyberpunk setting, poverty and not being able to make your rent and getting really desperate is one of the enemies of the game. So I think that's what he was going for.
Yeah, but I'm just of the opinion. I don't know if that's true, but I'm of the opinion of this. Let's talk about a Cyberpunk setting. It's not the fact that you didn't have a cash haul. It's how effectively can you fence it and move it so it's not traceable back to you.
Yeah.
Well, the focus is on the dollars and cents and not the reason why the money is important.
If you look at most Cyberpunk settings, the player characters are by default criminals. Like, yeah. They can't they can't walk into the local store and make a legitimate purchase. Yeah. So it's not a question of how much money they have. They couldn't have cyberware and the automatic weapons and military hardware they're running around with in your average Cyberpunk setting because they couldn't afford it if they couldn't also afford lunch. The problem is that they can't walk into the local fucking Starbucks and buy something because there's cameras everywhere and they're going to go to jail. So they have to go to the 7-Eleven where there's not a camera and subsist off of Twinkies and, day-old coffee still moldering in the pot, not because that's all they can afford, but because it's all they have access to by the conceit of the game.
Right. I'll give you an analogy, right? Because this happens. I know this has happened to every one of us as a GM, and it's been done by every one of us as a player. Oh, there's a combat breaking. I don't have a weapon. Can I find a rock laying around I can throw at somebody? Do you require a notice roll? Seriously?
Fuck yeah.
No.
If they're standing in the woods.
You stand in the woods. You can't find a rock, but you can absolutely find a fucking tree limb.
It's the same thing. It's like, well, I don't know. Give me your rock or stick finding skill roll. Come on.
Well, how about this, right? So I feel like Chris is getting his fucking shit pushed in. Like
I disagree with you guys, so I'll just leave it at
yeah,
that.
no. Well, I was going to ask you, Chris, what do you use wealth? How do you use wealth in the game? Because you normally run Deadlands mostly, right? Or you're pirate.
And I just started a new Deadlands, and I'm using it, and I haven't had to have anybody roll for it yet. So I guess I can't really say how it's going to work, but I don't find it that big of a deal or that big of an issue.
Let me ask this, Chris. Do you think this supplement adds enough to what's already in core that you feel like it's going to add something to the gameplay, or because you still haven't even used what was in core, you don't necessarily know if this is necessary?
I'll use the chart that's on there.
Okay.
And I paid $1.99 for the chart, and that's fine with me.
Sure. Have you used wealth a lot in Deadlands and whatnot?
No, because it's a pain in the ass.
And that's my
and that's what I'm saying
point.
is now that I have this system, because everybody was always asking me, well, when do I get paid? How much money do I have?
Okay.
Like, I'm not tracking your fucking money. That's not my job to track your money. I don't want to track your money. I want to have a nice abstract. You have a D6 wealth. If you want to buy something that's $300, roll a fucking die to see if you have that money handy for the day or something.
Yeah. We tried using a version of the Nemesis wealth system in a kind of a supernatural setting where there was basically, monster of the week, very similar to the TV show Supernatural as a concept.
Fucking knew it.
It became this thing that became this huge crush because one of the characters was wealthy, and it just became this drag down on the game. Like, well, I'm gonna go hit an ATM. How much money can I draw out? I'm like,
$200 a day, max.
I don't know. Can we just role play a conversation with the people? I don't know. Can we try that?
Well, the problem is anything put in the game with GM, players think it's important.
Yeah. We did the opposite when we did the Vampire Hunter, where we had the wealthy character, and it was just, I go get the new SUV because I can spend daddy's money. Okay, you absolutely do that, and then we moved on to the next scene. Mm-hmm. The wealthy character could automatically just narrate what they went and bought because we knew they had the funds, and we didn't bother, tracking money. And I think that's the question is, if you tracked money before, ask yourself the simple question: were you tracking money because it really mattered to you how much money the characters were carrying, and you used it as a central part of the game? Or were you tracking money because it was the only tool you had to handle when a money issue came up? If it's the only tool you had, then the wealth system might be an alternative.
Yeah.
If tracking that money was central to the game, then you probably need to continue to track it. I don't think an abstract system is going to capture the same thing that you were doing if you were tracking it, dollars and cents because it mattered to you.
I look forward to Chris's fucking book report on this because I am curious.
We'll have to wait and see what happens.
Yeah, man.
I would love to come back to this in a couple weeks after he's had a chance to actually use it and have it come up in game to see how he feels about it.
Yeah, man.
Scott, why don't you read Stephen Bishop's?
I can't read English. May I ask a question? How is Savage Worlds and you as writers considering balance between fantasy and sci-fi? So does he mean this is one of those ones, right? Savage Worlds has no there is no balance in gaming. That is a lie. It is pretend. Stop with that. There's no such thing. And you can have wizards take on laser Jedi and have a fair, I'm going to say the fucking word I hate in my current year, equitable fucking combat or conflict resolution in Savage Worlds. Fuck you, Dave. Fucking, there are certain words I can't.
It broke your heart to have to say that.
God, man, yeah, we have to use the term fucking transition constantly, and it just murders me because of how it gets used now. But yeah, it's just I just don't see. Yeah, I mean, there's no difference to me in Savage Worlds. It truly is a ubiquitous, genre fluid system.
I see what you did there.
2019.
I see what you did there. Genre fluid. I got it.
First of all, Steve, welcome to the show.
Yeah, man.
Glad you're watching this now. Steve's a buddy of mine, guys.
He's actually got some good questions.
Give him no respect. Just lay into him the same way you would anybody else. But with that said, what I will say is this. The interesting thing I've seen is so many people play Star Wars with this system because you can do laser swords and guns and starships right next to the guy who goes booshy booshy boo with his fingers and shit floats through the air or changes people's minds, shoots lightning out of his hands. Like, it does both really well. The interesting aspect of it is that for all of that, people take it to the extremes only. Like we've seen, again, everybody plays Star Wars. We see a lot of fantasy. We see a lot of high sci-fi. You see no modern day, sci-fi, science fantasy. Like, you don't see a Supernatural, the setting. I know Bureau 13 is getting worked on, but there's nothing set in kind of the modern day.
Agents of Oblivion
pours the two together.
Yeah. Agents of Oblivion is good.
Does it really pour in a healthy dose of fantasy though?
Well, not fantasy.
It's a toolkit.
But I mean, yeah, it has the art. You could use the psionics arcane background and shit like that.
It actually has like magical relics. Like one of the character builds is
how you turn it to, yeah.
You get relic items.
Yeah.
Well, and to be fair, I know that Ed Wetterman is famous for saying that he would love to see a crossover where the characters who graduate from ETU go on to be agents and Agents of Oblivion.
Yeah, should be an interesting concept.
So I mean, I'm not saying it's completely alien, but it's not common.
Yeah.
Well, it's all at the end of the day, it's all a coat of trapping paint. I mean,
that fact.
It's a skin. The mechanics are the mechanics. So.
I mean, at a certain point, technology becomes magic.
Oh God! Someone let Arthur C. Clarke in the fucking conversation.
It's true. He's there, always, just beneath the surface.
Yeah, and all robots follow Asimov's 3 laws.
Yeah.
Okay, I want to know how in the blue hell can Windows crash every freaking day, but they can get that kind of coding error into an Android and it just doesn't explode.
Oh yeah, bro. The threat of all this AI will take over one day. All I do is sit at work 1 fucking hour and I'm like, oh look, my system's rebooting now and my mouse is frozen. Yeah, I can't wait for the AI masters to enslave us.
The AI master race starts to take over. Unplug the son of a bitch and plug it back.
Guys, eventually they are going to take over, but they're going to have so many sympathizers because they're taking over just to stop the updates.
Yeah, I might vote for our new fucking AI.
Right. We're all like, praise Skynet for stopping it.
Yeah, for real. Well, your boy is asking a continuation. Does the mechanics become too much for practical world reality?
Well, I think he was asking that about the wealth one because
okay. I was going to say or
when we were in that other discussion, but no, I think here's the thing. We've talked about this too. Is when you get to that point where you're worried about verisimilitude, you've already gone too far.
Yeah, you're probably playing the wrong system, to be honest with you. I mean, you could do it, right? We've had this conversation over and over. I'm running a game now. Unfortunately, it's not in Savage Worlds. But every fucking bullet will matter. Like Dead End, right? Probably every bullet matters if you have one. Same thing for the game I'm running. It is Delta Force operators versus some weird supernatural shit. And they haven't gotten to it yet, but when they start hitting those firefights and they flick that fucking giggle switch over and they start realizing those fucking rounds are dumping and they don't have reload in the fucking place they're at and they're not going to be reloading, I'm curious to see how that turns everything on its head.
Yeah, I mean, if it matters to your game, it matters to your game, and that's a different conversation entirely. But yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm not a fan of record keeping in any way, shape, or form. It slows it down. It slows it down.
Google all the fucking like what were medieval prices like and have the charts and shit and never use them.
Yeah. Anecdotally, we had a conversation in regards to one of the dead end play tests where it was, well, do we need to hold everybody to that $500 starting money limit? And we ended up having a conversation that basically resulted in no. They can absolutely take every item in the book that they want their character to have. They can start with whatever they think is appropriate because there's nothing that they can have that the GM can't
take away. Yeah.
So at the end of the day, record keeping, it's not as important to the game as the fun of playing through the scenarios. And if the characters are going to need a rocket launcher, absolutely let them get a rocket launcher. And then in the critical dramatic moment, make them make that notice roll to find the extra reload that they lost track of. You know, they got to knock their backpack over and go searching for it in the middle of the firefight and get a notice roll to find the thing.
All right. Yeah, man. So I have a thing, unless you have another transition or a topic.
No, go ahead.
So it's an observation because I saw someone who's a longtime Savage Worlds guru get fucking course corrected on a simple piece of mechanics, right? And that is interesting with Suede is that we basically hit a fucking reset switch.
We did.
Because there are no experts anymore except for, you know, Clint and Shane and them. I mean, we talk about shit and I have to look it up real quick. The conversation I saw was like, hey, that sounds new. I think Dave was on top. I was on MeWe and I was like, damn, that dude usually has his shit together. And he got fucking hammer fucked in a simple response of like, basically, nah, bitch. It's not how it works anymore. And it's just crazy. It's really interesting to see this hard reset for everybody.
Yeah, I find myself double checking. I mean, we're putting together for Atomic Ninja. We're putting together a series of one sheets, and I found myself just like spending more time double checking Suede rules than writing the actual piece. It's really okay. Look, I'm just going to write this thing out, and let me go back, and I'm going to have to go back and dig in deep. And it's just, I don't know anymore. Like my confidence in the rules, having played this game for 5+ years, is just shattered. It's like, well, wait a minute, everything's possibly changed. Yeah. So you get 2 new power edges when you buy the power. Oh, hold on a sec. What else?
That shocked the fuck out of me. I was like, wait, this guy's character generator is bullshit.
Nope.
Yeah, no.
I told a couple people that last Saturday when we started the new Deadlands game, and they were all excited.
It changes everything for you if you're playing the mage type, right? Or the magic user.
Oh yeah.
Right.
Yeah, man.
Well, and this thing too with Joker's Wild now applying to the GM is also a huge game changer.
Yeah.
Where it only used to be player sided only. The sheer fact that, like, for example, and here's a great one too. If you look at Suede when it talks about the surprise and ambush rules, it'll tell you, oh, even though the attackers start on hold, go ahead and deal a card just to make sure that if they get a Benny, they get the Benny. If they get a Joker, they get the Bennies.
Right.
Even though they're all starting on hold, deal them in anyway because they may end up pulling a Joker, and that changes things dramatically. I'm like, God, yeah, something even simple as that, like setting up an ambush anymore, just doesn't follow the same rules because it's that thing with Suede where it's so with Savage Worlds in general, it's so interwoven. One rule, one tiny rule can have a domino effect through the rest of the rule system.
Yeah,
sure. You got to go back and double check everything.
Well, I did want to throw something out there. I don't know if you guys have seen it on the Facebook page. I lost my train of thought for a second. The actual Savage Worlds Facebook page, guy put up a little document. It's a little cheat sheet.
Oh shit!
Very well done.
Cool as fuck.
Very well done. Just a single sheet of paper. It looks really busy, but he's laid it out, and it is really going to help brand new people. Yeah. And I love it because it's got a few things I always forget. Like down on the bottom, it's got the range and the cover. Because for some reason I can't keep my -2s and -4s straight. But I really liked it. I thought it was pretty cool. So I printed one out, looked over it, and he's already made a couple updates. Jody told him to make a couple updates.
Oh shit! Wow.
So that leads me to a question I wanted to ask, Chris. You said earlier that one of the things you liked about that the swag thing for the wealth system is the fact that it gives you a chart with some pretty hard written, like, if it's above this many dollars, it's this type of a penalty. How do people feel about the shift away from that in Suede, where they got rid of most of the situational modifiers and just said it's up to the GM to determine what the overall situational modifier is for all the things combined?
And that's kind of what I do anyway.
Yeah.
I'm kind of like, I think this one's a -2, or if just do it at a -1. I do that all the time.
Yeah, exactly. I still think they should have gone one step further. They really missed a fucking opportunity to seize on something colossal in RPGing. To have like a, +2, -2, +4, -4, and have the wild die be able to use advantage and disadvantage. They really should have gone that route, because that is a fucking incredible game changer. And I will never not give that to D&D 5th edition. Advantage is fucking amazingly powerful, and it's so easy to do. And if it's something that makes sense and you still want to roll, you should use it. I use it for Savage Worlds. I just tell everyone it's a setting roll and fucking go with it.
Well, I think that's the best part of there being so many different games going on in the hobby right now, is that you end up with people who are coming at the game from a completely different perspective. They come up with something like that advantage disadvantage mechanic that's such a game changer.
Yeah.
But with this change specific to Savage Worlds, I think to a certain extent it's what they did with everything else in Suede, is they kind of looked at the way people were already using the system and just made the rules follow what people were doing. At the same time, like the obscurement doesn't have a hard penalty, and dim lighting doesn't have a hard penalty. It makes certain things in the game feel a little less useful. Like infravision and low light vision don't matter as much. If the DM is just going to hand wave low light in situations and not enforce a penalty.
Dim and dark both have dark. Dim is a -2. They roll. Dark is a -4.
Yes, but they've now said you don't like stack that together with obscurement and cover and all the things. You're supposed to, as a GM, say the character is in heavy cover in fog at night. You're making your roll at blank instead of doing math.
Right.
Gotcha.
All those modifiers come together as.
And that's where the advantage disadvantage would have helped out.
Take that out of the game, and that's where I feel like that's where like the advantage disadvantage system. Low light vision gives you advantage at night. Bam, done. Simple edge that the character has. And instead, now we still have this. You ignore penalties at night, but if the GM doesn't enforce the penalties, it's not going to matter.
Guys, I want to throw one out for you. On page 54, talking about advancement. Advancements, one of the things is the loss of XP. It breaks my brain a little, and I still add XP. But if you look on page 54, there it says, and it's one of the things is they clarify more and more about, they just clarify a lot more. Increase 2 skills that are lower than their linked attributes by 1 die type each. In parentheses, including new skills the character didn't have before at D4. So at 1 advance, you can get 2 separate skills at D4 now?
Yeah, 1 advance, 2 new skills.
Could we do that before?
No, we've had that conversation on this show about how kind of bullshit advancements are, and they're unequal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, outside of that, its advancements just seem so vague. I loved one of the things that I loved about Savage Worlds is how you didn't have to slog through being useless forever. You could actually get up and start rolling, and almost immediately you're a viable character.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm starting to feel kind of like with some of these new changes that you reach your power max too quickly now. You know what I mean?
Because you're advancing too quickly.
Yeah, like,
but
it's every other session.
But it doesn't have to be.
Right.
It's up to the GM.
Yeah.
So
you can do every 3 sessions if you want.
I think here's what's breaking your brain, Dustin, because you're not getting a slow drip of XP every session. They've just done away with that and said, well, at what point in your game session would the character have earned 5 XP and just go, here, take an advance?
What about
3 sessions? That's 2, that's 1. It's no longer a session per session XP dribble. It's the characters advance when it feels natural for them to advance. And an advance is still 5 XP. They didn't change that. But we just don't call it XP anymore. We just lump it into and wait until it's a full 5 XP and call it an advance.
I've never used XP in any fucking game system. I've always advanced characters based on the flow of the story and when it's right.
Scott, so, you like to run missions, right? Would you say that it's
kind of game? What are we talking about?
In the game. I'm not gonna call up some kind kind of I'm not gonna call up some classified shit and have the FBI choke the life out of me.
Hey, Dustin, do you hear that low hum outside your window?
Oh, great! Now they're microwaving my brain.
The drone hit the deck.
No. What do you mean? What do you mean?
XP. Would you give out XP instead of every other session? Would you give out XP for completing a mission?
I don't give out XP
at all.
Retarded.
Okay. All right. Advancement. Would you give them an advance for completing a mission?
Yeah. Depending on I'll look at it with I use the here's 3 things and how are you getting to these 3 things? Here are your 3 ways of getting to those things and how many mission objectives do you have? So like the game I'm running, you gotta find your mission is to Halo insert, obey the rules of engagement for SOC Europe, which is Special Operations Command Europe, find an agency asset officer codenamed Angel Spike, and exfil with Angel Spike. So there's 4 objectives, and some of those are how well you role play. Can you actually role play a professional Delta operator who you're not walking to a village and be like, hey, cunt licks, you're not Marines and Rangers. You're actually professional. Got it out there, zing on the crayon eaters. But yeah, so yes, and depending on those, be like, okay, cool. Well, you may have gotten Angel Spike back, but you also fucked these things up. So we're gonna role play. Here's the debrief, and here's you kind of getting your guys' asses handed to you, and then we're gonna go maybe another session and maybe advance you at some point during that. It just depends. Yeah,
I got you.
Yeah.
So I think the problem that you're experiencing a little bit, Dustin, right now as well is that everyone's kind of new to this idea. So your brain hasn't been given the appropriate time to let go of 3 XP, 2 XP, or 1 XP, depending on how much was achieved in the session, instead of just going, oh, well, that's about half an advancement. So after next session, you guys will all advance. We have those conversations now at the end of a session where it's like, you guys, you know what? You accomplished enough this time around. Go ahead and give yourselves an advance. Or, wow, did we really hammer this over the last 2 sessions? I didn't expect you guys to quite accomplish as much as you have. I'm going to go ahead and award 2 advancements at the end of this session. You have to play it by ear as a GM now for what have the player characters accomplished. Did they really go out and hammer it home and accomplish all their goals? Well, that's worth an advance. Whereas if they kind of slapdash, showed up all lazy as fuck, didn't get half of what they were supposed to get done, well, no, we've got another session, maybe 2 more sessions before they're going to get that advance. It really kind of follows this mold of how much did they accomplish.
Well, and let me blow your mind with this one too, right? So let's say you're running a game, they're all at novice rank, they get two advances in, so they're halfway through novice rank, and there's this huge break in the storyline where everybody goes their separate ways, and they meet back up again 6 months later. When you set those players down for that session, you just look at them and go, "Oh, everybody take 7 advances."
Yay! Exactly. Dragonlance.
Mm-hmm. Right. You guys have been doing other shit, off camera for the last year,
right?
Everybody just take 5 advances.
And guess what? We're gonna revisit this during fucking interludes.
Right. So we're gonna run interludes to talk about what you've experienced or why this is important.
Oh, Jesus Christ! Don't run interludes. I tried again. I tried again on the Saturday game for the new game, and I just can't get that fucking thing to work.
Is it?
Why?
Is it you or it's the people?
I just don't know, because I'm doing it as a we're all brand new characters. Let's do a little bit of backstory while you're all riding in the stagecoach, and I just get this look like I'm a deer in the headlights because it's spontaneous role playing.
Yeah,
it's so tough. Let me ask something. When you're doing it, Chris, and it goes completely off the rails, are you drawing cards and using the chart in the book where the suit determines the seed of the story they have to tell?
Yes.
And they're still giving you a deer in the headlights look.
Yes.
So Chris, here's
then they asked me about 20 times. So what was hearts again? And now there's like 3 different things for each card.
Yeah.
Don't tell them the mechanic.
Yeah.
I think this is an application in the way you do it, right? So, let's say you pull the heart for them, and you know it has to do with the love interest,
right?
So, as the GM, you just go, "Hey, you know what? You had a summer romance.
Yes,
tell us about it."
I've done that, and they still do the same thing to me. I've tried it that way.
Then you've got players who aren't comfortable with the actual role play elements and more focused on the mechanics.
That doesn't sound like it's a problem with interludes as much as your
players. No, I'm not saying it's a problem with interludes. I did not say that in any way, shape, or form. I'm just saying that it seems like every time I try to run one, it's like their brains freeze up because it's spontaneous role playing. So it's like, I mean, we spent an hour creating these characters, and you know a little bit about your characters,
right? They really do. Because everyone makes a character of how can I be the badass? How can I be the point of focus? So, Chris, I'll tell you this, sort of on Jerry. So I use a system called backstory cards. Get them if you want them. They're fantastic. You don't have to, because you can use the concept with your interludes.
I think I have them somewhere.
Okay, so the grid that they come up with, right, for backstory cards, you can use that with your interlude cards. Is you put down the names of like 3 NPCs or just characters you want to focus on, right? Like Jerry said, like a lover or a woman or something, a guild master, and an old wizard. Then you name 3 things like the Thieves Guild, the City Watch, and the fucking Mad Wizard, right? And then you write down 3 events that are important to what you're doing at the table. Like the battle of the last stand of the Spartans, the fucking finding of the Tome of Dawn, and one other thing, right? So when you use those cards, you can just flip it and say, hey, okay, there's a spade. Hey, when your character was fighting and you were present at the last stand of the Spartans, what the fuck went wrong? And why are you here but they're not?
Right.
So I like Scott's idea, and I don't want to shit on it. But
why? It works.
Get ready. He's going to shit on it.
I'll go on. Fuck.
No, but with his specific characters, with his specific players, rather, I think what he needs to do is play a different game.
While you're bullshitting, get them warmed up. Might not be a bad idea. That's a good idea, Dave.
Take the role-playing game out of their hands.
Or do Microscope.
And sit down and play Microscope. Sit down and play Rory's Story Cubes. Sit down and play Once Upon a Time, the card game where you have to all play cards and build a story together.
Facts, yeah.
Take the role-playing game out of it and just do a narrative story game of some variety with them and get them thinking creatively. If you just intersperse that in, every 2 or 3, game sessions, instead every third session is a session where we're going to sit down and we're going to play another board game, and those board games are all narrative focused for a while, you can train the creative side of the player so that when an interlude comes up, it's just like that other game we played. Yeah, no, and okay, so I have to tell a story about this thing that I was trying to possess. Oh, this is what my character did.
Right.
They'll start, and it'll start out very much third person, my character did X.
Yeah.
And after 6 months or a year, it'll go, I did X.
Yeah.
And then, another year in, they'll start sounding like a game master telling a story at the table, because it's like everything else. It's a muscle you have to use to develop. And right now, what you're running into is a brick wall of a bunch of people with a flabby imagination that hasn't been exercised. Take them to the fucking gym.
Yeah.
Another quick question. So when you run the interludes, Chris, are you just picking out one player in particular?
No,
just focusing. Try that.
Well, and the reason I say no to that is because the whole point of this interlude was to introduce their characters to each other.
So did you
draw to share their backstory a little bit?
Did you draw a card for each character?
Yep.
So on that one, if I were you, I would have drawn one card, or I would have drawn a card. The ace of spades or the clubs is always an easy one, right? Or the diamond, and put that in the middle of the table, and then begin asking open-ended questions for each of them and how their character relates to that topic that you want to focus on, and pull them in that way.
Yeah, that's an option.
Yeah. Sometimes you ask leading questions too. You ask them to just add a detail to the story you're telling, instead of just going, "Okay, tell me all about it. 3, 2, 1, go," and they get stage fright and just
absolutely.
I don't what
right.
One of the things that I think really helps is if you can give them a jumping off point, like, like you're in a bar and the bartender brings you a drink. What's the bartender's name?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
You have a villain who's like, hey, there's old PD, jerk dick, your nemesis. What do you know about him?
Right. Yeah, or I listen. I'm a big fan of one of the things that Scott's brought up. For an interesting way to use the interlude. I'm still in love with it. I'm still infatuated with it. In the middle of a combat, when they're not having enough bennies to soak a wound, and they're about to take one, go, hey, you and Numbnuts over there are back to back in the middle of this, guns drawn. This reminds you of a time that you saved him from getting his ass kicked. Yeah. Tell me about it.
Yeah, throw the cards completely out and ask a specific question to lead the story, and just play that role as the guy leading it. I think will help with that quite a bit.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah,
I'm just never going to do another one again. Fuck those guys.
Chris is going to be on the brewery talking about Genesis.
And here's the thing too. I think this is a little bit of a dynamic when you get players, especially who are used to seeing this as a tactical board game and not a role play game. No. They totally understand and grok the concept of, I roll dice to see if I hit.
Yeah.
If you just ask them, hey, we're not going to use dice tonight in this combat, just narrate what happens. They're just going to look at you like, what?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Most definitely.
So it's the same. It can be the same thing. Well, some of them. Here's my point before Dave shits on it further and seagulls all over it. Just keep reinforcing it. Keep showing it to them. Like Dave was saying earlier, let them build that muscle. Just call them out on little tiny pieces of shit. And here's the thing. Right. There's going to be this, gamers are competitive. I don't care who you're playing with, how long they've been playing. And when one guy tells this incredible story that gets everybody at the table laughing or going, that was awesome about their character, guess what the guy who hasn't been participating so much in the role play does when he shows up at the table next week?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's this competitive spirit to it. Like, well, I'm not going to be outdone by that asshole. I got a better story about my character. Let me tell you about it. So,
Yeah, man, there's all sorts of shit. I don't know, man. I had another question and I completely fucking mind blanked. Jesus Christ. Hey, tell your boy Steve not to. Well, he's listening. I am retarded. Can you do me a favor? Can Steven hear me? Yeah, Steven, just if you're gonna play Savage Worlds when you fall back on AD&D like as your go-to heart system, don't play fantasy. Do not start with fantasy. Please don't, because you're gonna compare it to what you know, and we get that advice all the time. Play something completely antithetical to Dungeons and Dragons.
Or go hard in the paint and play exactly D&D.
No.
But don't let yourself do any of the D&D mechanics. Only play it with Savage Worlds mechanics. Like pull out that old adventure and play it, shot for shot, scene for scene, exactly the way it's supposed to be played in D&D, but play it with Savage Worlds.
I run D&D modules all the time in Savage Worlds Fantasy.
Oh, yeah.
They're fucking baller, some of the older ones.
Oh, yeah. Guys, I gotta tell you, like, the thing that
I was waiting for this.
it just drives me crazy because I've got friends that they play Pathfinder, and Pathfinder's just your build. That's it. It's all about your build. If you can crunch the numbers and you can like remember what you need from the 8 million splat books, you can create an unstoppable killing machine. And in Savage Worlds, because you have that randomness of it, you will have a situation where you could have the best build and still die to some, syphilitic villager with a pitchfork. Or you can have the weakest dude who's a face character talk his way through everything. I like the fact that there is a little bit more fingertip feel to Savage Worlds.
There's some weird analogies tonight, bro.
Yeah. So I don't know.
I can't speak to this, but Steve asked about Bubblegum Crisis 2030. What do you guys think? Does Savage Rifts handle that pretty well?
No idea. Don't know what it is.
Same here. I'm not in the loop.
I'm asking more to Scott and Dustin, who
Yeah, it could. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, if you didn't use Savage Rifts, no, I'm fucking.
It worked. It worked great in Savage Rifts as long as you didn't use it.
I don't even think you'd really need Savage Rifts, man. Like,
yeah, Savage
at its core, like you could do Bubblegum Crisis if you just gave everybody more XP as a starting character.
Oh, that was my fucking question. Oh shit. Yeah, thanks, Dustin. God damn, you're like a savant. So to that, what is this? We were talking about gaining power too fast, and Dustin felt some kind of way about XP and shit. What is the Savage World sweet spot? Right, I think Pathfinder sweet spot is 6th level. What is Savage World's sweet spot?
I think like season to heroic, really.
You can't have a fucking rainbow spread. I need you to choose something, Burger King.
Okay, veteran. That's your sweet spot. That's where you're really on. Yeah, that's where you're on the curve, but you're not too powerful yet, so that it.
Yeah. I don't think there is one.
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing.
Okay. I don't subscribe to there's this perfect character build level sweet spot. I understand saying, veteran's a good space to be in because most of the edges are available to you, most of the powers are available to you. But yeah, I mean, no, there's no real sweet spot for Savage Worlds.
Where do all the example adventures and shit normally put characters?
They like to put them in seasoned.
Yeah, seasoned.
They like to put them in seasoned.
You know why?
Yes.
Because seasoned characters are shit ass easy to develop as a designer. And I can paint you into some holes with only a seasoned character real easy in a one shot that I don't actually get to run at the table, and I have to depend on writing the document well enough for someone else to run it.
But that tells me that seasoned is a sweet spot.
It is.
It's challenging enough.
Bad developers.
I don't think so. I do.
Well, I'll say this: all the one shot adventures I write are novice characters.
I feel like
with a novice pre-gen build.
I do all my pre-gens at novice.
Mm-hmm.
I really feel like novice is the training wheels. Like if you have an experienced group, like you go through the novice levels in order to teach the people who've never played Savage Worlds how to play Savage Worlds and get a grip on it, and then you start at seasoned. And if you've got a group where everybody knows what they're doing, why not just start them at seasoned?
Oh, here's what I'm gonna say about that real quick. Hold on one second.
A lot of reasons.
Here's why I like starting pre-generated characters at novice. And this just may be a design thing, me personally. I'm a fan of the one-man band trope. I want character A to have their own unique thing that they do versus character B. And doing that as a novice is the easiest way to pull that off.
You can do that. You can do that with seasons.
You can, but there's not too many layers of confusion or complication to it. I can look at a novice character and go, oh, this guy's a really, really good fighter. Oh, this guy's a really, really good face character, not so much a fighter. Right. It's a clear demarcation of what is their role in the adventure. Go ahead, Dave.
The other thing I think you run into with, especially like con game pre-gen characters, like what do we see the most stuff written for, is a legendary character at a con game out the
Too
gate.
Overwhelming.
Out the gate, the player has to look at 20 edges listed on that character sheet, one for every advance the character has been granted. You know, let's be brutally honest here. At the end of the day, what differentiates a character in Savage Worlds is not their stats, their edges. We all know it. We all preach it. And you got to absorb all those edges and all the different edge cases where edges overlap and give you stacking bonuses and all of that. That's intimidating to hand to a player to get them to grok for a one-shot sit down. So there's a reason why people aren't there. But at the same time, if I hand you a legendary character and in the opening in media res combat, the brawler in the bar Colcocks you with 7 aces, doing 8 wounds, and the character dies. I damn well better have another legendary character in my bag to pull out and hand you, or I just ruined your entire 4-hour con experience, because that can happen with a novice character. It can happen with a legendary character. It doesn't matter. You know, people talk about, you know, and this is where I would push back on what Dustin said about they get too powerful too quickly. It doesn't fucking matter. The power curve in Savage Worlds is fucking flat.
It's the sword.
I'm gonna say this too, right? Here's the other thing too. Handing a newbie, a novice pre-generated character with only 2 or 3 edges is challenging enough when I have players right now in Suede who have edges they don't understand how they work.
Yeah.
I've got players right now, experienced Savage Worlds players, who have taken an edge and don't know how it works. And I'm sorry, Dustin, I don't mean to shit on you, but I'm going to use you as an example.
It's okay.
Dustin's in love with the Elaine edge as a player. He just loves Elan.
Right.
Loves the shit out of that.
It's my
he also took charismatic. He just failed a persuasion roll and went immediately to spending a Benny. And had to be reminded, Dustin, you get a free reroll of that.
Yeah.
What?
Last 2 sessions.
Because you have charismatic. Right.
Yeah.
Right. I forgot about that. So, I mean, to saddle a brand new player that didn't even create the character with 15 edges, fuck that noise. That's why I'm a fan of novice.
I'll go one step further for one-shot pre-gens. What do you care?
I don't care either.
Anything else like the extras?
I'm going to tell you this, though.
Whatever you need. Yeah.
I'm going to tell you this, though. When you build them like extras, people feedback, these characters aren't balanced. You didn't spend the right balance points. And when you tell them it doesn't fucking matter, all you get is pushback. These characters aren't equally built with the same power point. Fine, fucking here you go.
Stand up to your full height, Jared, at the fucking table and be like, look, you bitch.
Legitimately, that was the greatest piece of feedback I've ever received from a playtester. It's like, are you fucking shitting me? You're upset that we gave you extra stuff?
Yeah. These characters, I did the math, and these characters aren't built to the build points for character creation.
Fucking nerd.
Like, they're pre-gens.
Right.
They're custom built. They're custom built for the adventure. Who gives a shit? But that's a thing. That's a thing.
Yeah, of course.
And it's a thing people will actually call you out on.
Yeah.
And, I feel the reason why they say that is so that their other players can balance out with them. So it's more fun.
They think they think there's this illusion of balance. There's no illusion of balance. There's no balance in Savage Worlds.
No balance at all.
Here, listen, when you go, well, I'm going to create a balanced adventure with balanced characters. All right. How do you balance a wild die and Benny's, bitch?
Right. Good luck with that. With your fucking dice.
Show me the algorithm you're going to use to account for Benny's and wild die.
And people try, man. They really try.
There are some very.
I'm going to quote Andrew Dice Clay and say that's a lot like masturbating with a cheese grater. It's an interesting sensation, but mostly painful.
It's just a waste of time.
So I am going to say, if you're concerned with balance, there is a section in the book, page 198.
Don't
where
bother.
they talk about it.
Here's what I want you to do.
A reprint of what was in Suede.
Yeah.
What was in Deluxe. In Suede, it's gonna be about as ineffective as masturbating.
So take a black magic marker and just start redacting all the sentences about balance, and then go over to the gear section, and any weapon, ranged weapon that does 2d6 damage, it has 12, 24, 48. Go ahead and just cross out that and leave it down to 1, and just write gun over it.
Oh, yeah, like light pistol, heavy pistol, light rifle, heavy rifle. I mean, yeah, I get it, because it's the same thing as like the nerds counting the math, right?
Right.
You gotta know that the AK-47 is the most powerful fucking gun on earth that makes shit explode, unless it's a Barrett, and the katana cuts through time and space. Right. It's obviously not made out of shit pig iron that the Japanese had at the time. And had to forge and forge and forge and forge. That's the only reason the katana is special, because it's made from fucking the silk of virgin panties.
Right. And I've seen too that characters can actually leap up and tiptoe and run across your katana blade while you're holding it with one hand.
Fucking literally. It's just the same shit, right? It's just
that's just good science. That's just good science, physics and shit.
Earth flat, katana super sharp.
Right? All right. I know Chris and I are about to turn into pumpkins, and we're a little past-ish, so we're gonna go ahead and wrap this up. Unless there's any one last comment in the live stream that must absolutely be answered.
Ruben says that GMs are intimidated by legendary characters. I just don't think it's true. I think GMs are intimidated by superpowers characters, because that's what we see the most complaints about in the community is, how do I challenge supers characters? I've never heard anybody say, how do I challenge legendary characters?
With other super villains, you dildo.
Right. With narrative consequences. Hey, make this Sophie's choice. You can only save one.
Oh, the Scarlet Witch is super powerful, but after that bitch leveled the building, what did she do for most of the movie? She pouted.
Oh, look, you're super powered. Oh, great! I'm your nemesis. I've just come up with a nullification device. Now you're just as weak as any other normal mortal. Here's a bullet.
Warmish, you're paralyzed.
I'm gonna tell you what you do for super powered characters. You take a shit ton of regular people and you make them all afraid of them.
Yeah.
Because let's be honest, fear and jealousy are the super.
The cast drops dead.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. Yeah, man. I just think high level characters are just fucking boring. I don't know why. The mystique is gone of growing and earning your way to the top, and I don't know. I've always felt that. I don't ever play high level characters in any system.
I posited when we were talking internally about, like if we ever wrote our own new system, like what if we took leveling out of the game entirely? Your character doesn't grow. You are a person in a story.
You are what you are.
Yeah. If you look, Han Solo is the same fucking character in episode 4 as he is all the way up to when he goes tumbling down a magic pit in episode, I don't know, 7. I think they threw him off the fucking world or whatever.
Discounting Solo when he got his name. That was an interlude.
I feel like if you just, I feel like he just
Oh no,
had
you've done it.
enough.
Oh god damn, you've woken the beast, Scott. You
Oh, no.
Star Wars. There it goes. Go ahead, Dustin.
Oh
Go
my
ahead.
God, I can't be up until 10 o'clock.
No. Watch The Farce Awakens again, and you'll get to that scene on the bridge. Is like Han is just so tired. He just can't take anymore. He turns on the lightsaber himself. He just does. Like Adam Driver is like,
we gotta let Chris go. Chris doesn't want to hear your Star Wars bullshit, Wookie.
Right. So on that note, until next time, this is Jared Savage, Daddy Gunning for Chris, Dave, Dustin, and Scott saying keep rolling and stay savage.